Why don't you just go home?
I've been asking myself that one all night long.
So what happened? Why can't you?
I met this girl tonight, okay, in a coffee shop.
I feel like something incredible is really gonna happen here.
So when I got home, I gave her a call. On the cab on the way down here, all my money flew out the window. I didn't really get along with her that well.
What's the matter?
I said, I want to see a plaster of Paris bagel and cream cheese paperweight. Now cough it up. So I left. Gigi! So I haven't got enough money to get home until I meet this bartender who wanted to lend me the money. That's all right, forget it. It's all right.
Poor boy.
So I go back to the girl's apartment, but her roommate's really pissed off at me for the way I treated her friend.
This the guy?
Hi.
So I marched right in there to apologize. Come on! But she'd already killed herself. I was too late.
Oh, wow.
Lighten up. What is this?
I'm in big trouble. Big trouble. Now this part, you're gonna say, oh, you're lying to me. Don't lie to me, but it's true. Mohawk this guy. I couldn't believe that.
It's him!
Tell him, it's not my fault. I didn't do it.
I gotta tell who you didn't do what.
Help! 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 Call the police!
What's with you? Are you nuts or something?
Luckily, there was this girl who saw the whole thing.
You're dead, pal.
And what? So now she's the one in the Mr. Softy ice cream truck who's trying to kill me. They're all trying to kill me. I just wanted to leave. You know, my apartment, maybe meet a nice girl. And now I've got to die for it, you know? What do you want from me? What have I done? I'm just a word processor, damn it.
I was doing Last Temptation of Christ in 1983, and the film fell apart. And there'd been a kind of change in my career. In fact, the whole industry had changed, and I wasn't very happy. So in any event, I had a lawyer at the time named Jay Julian who sent me a script from Amy Robinson and Griffin Dunne.
We get a phone call from our attorney saying that, Martin Scorsese wants to do your movie.
The Last Temptation situation obviously had been a real trauma for him, and he knew that he needed to show that he had the will to go back to his roots.
It was great because, in a way, it brought us back to the days when I first knew him, when he was a student filmmaker. But I think at that period of his life, he was very, very aware that he had to prove something, and it must have been a very stressful time.
I was sort of reinventing how to make a picture, to have a smaller crew, to move faster. I really felt if I don't pull this one off, it's completely over, and I'll be able to get to make another film.
Amy Robinson and I were partners. We were basically very out-of-work actors with a lot of time on our hands. We produced because we didn't want to wait around for jobs anymore.
I always say that the reason I became a producer, and I think all of us became producers, was because of material.
Amy found the script at Sundance.
It was called Lies, and it was this dark, funny, paranoid New York summer movie, and I couldn't put it down. And I called Griffin immediately.
And said, this kid wrote it when he was a student at Columbia. It was his thesis. It was his homework. But this would be a really good part for you, and we should produce it. When I read it, I had the same reaction Amy did. We found it enormously funny, but also really anxiety-provoking. I had to read it standing up and turn the pages with my big toe. And I'd just read 2 pages and go, oh my God. It was just got worse and worse and worse what was happening to this poor guy. And we said, absolutely, let's do it. I'd never had a part as big as this, but I thought it didn't particularly, as producers, cost us anything. So we optioned it from Joe Minion.
Some people would read it in Hollywood. By the way, we were trying to get it financed and set up, and people would either read it and think it was extremely funny, or they would get so upset they would throw it across the room and say, I got a terrible headache and I couldn't finish that. So we knew it was very extreme, which we thought was good.
So we started to think about directors. And we were talking about who would be a good director for this. And Amy had, of course, been in Mean Streets. And I had met, on an appointment as an actor, Martin Scorsese. I'd actually met him for the kid in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which was, he was looking for 11-year-old kids. And I went in when I was 18. And he took one look at me and went, you're a little old, but come on in anyway. And we talked for half an hour. So I don't know if he remembered that. It's something I'll always remember.
Most people did not think of Marty as someone who made particularly quote unquote funny movies, although I think The King of Comedy is a brilliantly funny movie. And I felt that he would like the script and the sort of New Yorkiness of it. So we got it to him, not knowing if he would respond.
And he was doing Last Temptation of Christ.
And we had seen a short. I'd actually seen it attached to a Disney movie that I happened to go see, a short called Vincent.
By a cartoonist named Tim Burton. And we said, that guy would be really good to do After Hours. So we sent it to Tim Burton. And he said, wow, this is incredible. This is incredible. But somewhere about maybe a month and a half, 2 months after the time we met him, we get a phone call saying that Marty's picture, Last Temptation of Christ, had fallen apart. And we said, well, wow, we're actually, we're talking to, we've already kind of started, well, all right, we'll figure it out. Let's just, so we're talking to Tim and we said, Tim, the funniest thing happened today. We get this call from Martin Scorsese's attorney, who's also our attorney. We sent him this script like months and months ago. He goes, yeah, I mentioned that. He goes, well, his picture fell apart, and it was the first thing he read that he really wants to do, and he wants to do this movie. Isn't that weird? But anyway, back to our movie, and he said, wait a minute, did you say Martin Scorsese wants to do this movie? I went, yeah. He goes, and you sent it to him first? And we went, well, yeah. And he went, I gracefully withdraw from the project. I do not want to stand in the way of anything Martin Scorsese wants to do. He was, really excited about the urgency that would be required to make this. And talked a lot about how long everything took on King of Comedy, how it took a lot out of him. And our background was very much from an independent, low-budget background. Everything just felt right. It was the right rhythm, and Marty was just moving and moving, and with complicated stuff. Tracks were always being laid, and they were elaborate setups. People moved so quickly and efficiently. By the time you got to your trailer, it was time to come right back. When you break down that shot, everybody just like worker ants would just put it up because they really wanted to. They weren't like, feeling like slaves. They were like motivated to go on to the next shot.
I think when Marty makes movies, he creates absolute reality, and his decision to want to shoot this movie all at night, which another director might not have chosen because you could have shot the interior scenes in the day and had a split schedule, but it really created the atmosphere of the movie itself.
And, we started work as the sun was about to go down and ended when it came up. I'd sleep all day. It was like living like a vampire for the 8 weeks, I guess, we shot.
And we certainly picked little corners that indicated the stillness and the quietness, and also emphasized the idea that he could not get back uptown, that this was very, very far away.
No! I don't believe it!
Marty did something I've never seen any other director do ever since, was give, for anyone who wanted it, the shot list. He shot listed the whole movie. So there was no doubt about what we were going to be shooting. Everybody understood the tone of this picture. It was very, very clear.
Gail, what are you doing? What's wrong?
And it was the nightmarish aspect of it that Marty went for in After Hours, a kind of surrealistic feeling.
I think he said, as a matter of fact, I know he said, he related very much to Paul Hackett. I always felt like I was playing a certain version of him at that point in his life. I remember Marty telling me when Last Temptation of Christ was finally canceled, then he got a phone call from the studio head. They just started laughing. He was very upset, obviously, but they just, what are you going to do? Just started laughing. So Marty really delighted in the awful things that happened to Paul Hackett. And when I was acting, and the camera would be on me this way, and I'd be going through some horrific Paul Hackettism kind of moment, I could see Marty in the corner of the frame. Sometimes you have to turn away, and I just see his back, just unable, trying to hold back from laughing, and I'd hear these little sounds. And he just found it hilarious what was happening to him. always reminded me of that moment he was telling me when his picture was canceled. What are you gonna do? Just laugh.
Marty is extremely open to actors bringing their energy and their ideas to his vision. I think Marty's so confident of what he wants that he allows people to bring as much as they can bring. And Griffin really benefited from that all through this movie, I think.
A lot of the things that I learned from this picture, I carried on when I became a director. A lot of like little technical tricks. He used to have a box of glass with a brick just to get a certain thing. You didn't know when it was coming, and I've used my box. I got a box of glass too. You just take the brick and you throw it and everything jumps. It's either good to get a reaction to a gunshot or just kind of snap people awake. One of the other tricks that I learned is end slate. You don't say action, you say cut. You know, camera rolls and it starts when the actor, you turn on the camera when the actor walks on the set. There's a moment where I walk into the club and I'm supposed to look like I've just a 1,000-mile stare and I've just been through hell. And I told Marty I want to do an end slate. He said, great. So I'm outside, and before I go, I just broke into a dead run away from the set. And I just went running around the block. I run into the bar. It was called the Ear Inn, which is up the street from the set. And I went to the bar, and I ordered free drinks for everybody in the house, for everybody at that end of the bar. Free drinks. And everybody goes, yeah. And the guy, as he's turning to have me pay, I go running out of the bar. He goes, wait, stop that guy. It was right out of the movie. Of course, I knew the ADs were going to go and pay the bill. And I just ran myself kind of exhausted. And I stand out in front of the door, and I just push open the door and start the scene. You didn't see what happened on the other side of the door. It's what happens when you walk in the room. It's important. And Marty was like, that's great. Whatever works, kid. It's all whatever it takes to get the moment, to make it look real. That's one of my favorite shots. I shot a lot of running shots as an actor before, and it's always been frustrating when they say, could you make it look like you're running faster? We can't keep up with you. You know, sell the running, but you're really, your legs are kind of going in this, you look ridiculous from the waist down, but on the top you're really gunning it. This is the only movie I've ever done where I was told to run flat out as fast as you possibly can. Run like your life depended on it. And, it was very exhausting, but kind of great. I got a good workout in this one.
Ah, the key drop shot, yes. Well, the key drop shot was a very important shot for Marty. It's kind of a signature of the movie.
The grip came up with a very ingenious device.
They had a plank with a hole in the middle of it, and the camera was looking down through this hole, and then this plank was tied to a top of the building by
bungee cords, and then dropping it so it would come down and getting that effect of dropping and then bounce back up.
And this whole contraption was supposed to drop right below Griffin's head.
If it became loose from the bungee cord, I'd be wiped out.
I remember sitting next to Marty as the thing happened, and I literally clutched his arm, and I thought...
It was so wildly dangerous.
And it was so frightening that even Marty said, we can't do that again.
Almost impulsively, Michael, Marty, and Amy came out with, all right, let's stop it. We're not doing this anymore, not doing this.
The ropes were smoking, and...
From the camera, slipped and turned on its side or something like that.
Griffin, I think, was oblivious to it.
I went, really? I got one more. We can do one more.
It was something I will never forget.
You have to understand at this point, I was just I love this part. I love doing this movie so much. I just wasn't thinking about the danger. I wasn't sitting here going, oh, I'm going to get killed. I'm so scared. I just thought it was great. I was just an idiot and was just so happy to be there. Biggest problems we had with the picture was finding a suitable ending. The movie couldn't just be a guy gets dumped on, and then gets finally dumped on really bad, and then that's the end of the movie. That's just not satisfying to people. And we wanted an ending that would have that kind of victorious, not necessarily Rocky, but something that would release the audience and Paul Hackett from the confines of this, drama he'd been through downtown. What we shot was Cheech and Chong putting me in the van, and I think he just drove off, and it left the audience stuck in that van going to God knows where. And it had a really unsettling feeling.
And actually, we kind of liked that ending. But everyone kept complaining that needed some finality to it.
So we came up with a lot of different ideas and had Joe thinking about it. And probably, and at this point, Marty showed a lot of his friends, director friends, and I think Spielberg and De Palma and different people had seen the picture.
Michael Powell was an audience for many of our rough cut screenings.
At one point I said, I don't know where he should wind up at the end. I'm just not sure. And Powell walked by saying, oh, he should just wind up back at work. Yeah, well, I disagree with that. I'm not going to even comment on it. And so then we went for another 3 or 4 weeks around a whole circle of different ideas.
And Marty finally decided that was the solution and then shot the sequence where Griffin does go back.
And of course, the simple approach is always the best. Have them fall out, break out of the cast, and go to work. Dust yourself off, start all over again.
Last Temptation had actually almost fallen away when we sent the script to Marty. And he was in a very depressed state, as you are, when something you really care about has seemed to have gone away. And I think he felt very powerless. But on the last day of shooting of After Hours, we were toasting everybody. We're toasting each other on the street with our champagne, and it was the last shot. And Marty turned to Griffin and myself and said, "Thank you for giving me back my love of making movies." It meant a huge amount to me because we need Marty to make movies, and if this helped him to come back, then what a fabulous thing. I also love the fact that he won the Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival for this particular film. That means a lot to me as well. And that he did, after Hours was over, get to go on, I think 2 movies later, and make Last Temptation of Christ. So it brought him full circle as well.
I really loved the idea of the dark comedy of it. And I actually kind of identified with the character at that point. You know, just lost in the underworld. I was at a very interesting point in my filmmaking. I was completely locked out by that point.
What was the movie right before it?
King of Comedy. Very, very tough picture to make for me. And for the whole year of '83, I worked on Last Temptation. We were flying around the world, getting costumes, locations, casting, everything else. And then that was canceled 4 weeks before the end of the year. King of Comedy was listed by the end of the year, New Year's Eve. I remember on Entertainment Tonight, I happened to have it on, and I was putting on a tie to go to a dinner for New Year's Eve, and they said, and now the flop of the year. And
King of Comedy?
And the curtain opened, and there was King of Comedy. I came back to New York, and for some crazy reason, wound up living in the lofts downtown, in Soho, or in Tribeca, actually. But in any event, at that point, it was kind of open again. I had to start all over again. I wanted Gangs of New York, and that couldn't get financed. I wanted Last Temptation. The plug was pulled. Nobody would go near me on it. So I had to start all over again. I was completely no money at all. You know, bought this loft, and buying a loft is one thing. Fixing up the loft is another.
Especially then.
Yes.
Right? Because it had just recently been a shoe factory.
That's right.
Right.
And the brickwork.
The plumbing.
Man, yeah, the plumbing. One elevator, and I'm on the 10th floor, and when the elevator isn't working, we're hiking, you know. And I'm saying to myself, I'm come from the tenements, you know. Okay, this is where I belong, in these streets with the cobblestones and the red brick.
And the metal trash cans.
The metal trash cans.
Which no one remembers except us.
No,
right?
Exactly.
Because they made this huge noise.
The noise of the construction, the noise of the streets, it's something that I got away from for years. And this is really, I'm back where, and I realized I don't belong here. But I'm stuck here, I can't, broke. And there were no restaurants. There was nothing.
No, nothing. If I would, I lived in the Village at the time, if I would go to Soho to visit, I had friends who lived there, they would say things like, could you bring milk?
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Could you bring a pack of cigarettes?
Yeah. Prior to that, Soho meant, the image of my mind, and this kind of played into the movie, was sinister. Because if you want to steal hubcaps, which I know that, I don't know.
It's always been my priority.
Exactly, Fran. I'm not sure of it. If you want to steal a hubcap, you go to Crosby Street.
Right.
You go to Mercer Street. You go around that area at night. Because during the day, trucks,
right.
Open people, get chaos and traffic. At night, dead quiet, isolated. Every now and then you see a couple in a doorway having some kind of sex thing. Or you go get mugged. or you beat somebody up. That's what it was. You're taken to Crosby Street and you say, hey, want to talk to you for a second, and you work them over. Nobody knows. That was Soho to me.
And did you empathize with the character of Paul Hackett?
Well, in a way, in the sense the script really felt like the anxiety dreams that we have. The key thing was, could I go back to the way I made pictures when I did Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, or even Taxi Driver, Taxi was 45 days and nights shooting. New York, Raging Bull, and King of Comedy were 100 days shooting. And there were big crews and lots of lights. And can I go back? And I had met Michael Ballhaus, who worked with Fassbinder, and we changed the whole way of working. So for me, it was really learning how to make pictures again and learning to shoot fast and a sense of freedom. At that time, shooting at night in that area, one great thing about it.
Empty.
It was empty. And you got these streets, and it facilitated the lighting of the streets in a better way. And also, I think that we had higher speed lenses, so it wasn't that bad. But it was almost like a back lot of a studio. But it was terribly lonely. There was no bar you can go into. There was no restaurant. There were no bakeries where the bread was being made at 4 a.m. and go and buy one, and you start eating the bread that was still warm. None of that. We were suffering.
Throughout the entire movie, no matter what disaster confronts Griffin, he's always kind of polite.
Well, yeah.
You know, he's always, like, more polite than most men in that era would have been. In that way, it makes it kind of contemporary, where he's afraid, I don't want to be misconstrued. Right. Like, you know, may I?
Can I invite you to leave?
Yes. I mean, and when I was watching that, I thought, that is more now.
Yeah.
Than my memory of then.
Well, I like that his character was that way then, because he wasn't meant to be there in the first place.
Right, and that proves it. Because he's always like, I mean, to me, that proves it.
That's what I liked about Paul, because he tried to be reasonable. But there's no such thing as that kind of reason, really, especially down there,
Because it has no one knows what you're doing.
That's right. For all they know, he could be up to something.
Right, that's right.
And also, that's why he becomes the guy that they think has been robbing the apartments.
And he's constantly misjudged.
Yes. He meets up with Horst, Will Patton. He meets up with Kiki, the great Linda Fiorentino. They have their own agenda. They got their own lives. He doesn't belong there. He sees the rope on Linda. And at one point in time, I told Griffin, I said, these guys must be sailors. He's so out of it. And in my mind, he doesn't belong there. He's intruding. They're not crazy. He doesn't belong anywhere down there with those people.
No, that's true. Yeah.
None of them. You walk in a room and people are in there and all of a sudden they stop talking. Well, they're talking about you. Obviously.
Yeah. That's where they stop.
That's why they stop. The whole movie is that moment. That's what the movie is.
I mean, Paul Hackett believed people would help him because he needed them to.
Yeah.
Belief always comes from desperation.
Desperation. That was the other thing I told Griffin. At one point, he was begging John Hurd to give him the keys or whatever, and I said, I'm not going to stop shooting until you convince me you need those keys. Because I don't believe it yet. Now, he was great, and he did it. I said, you really, really need them, and you need him to give them to you. One has to understand, too, it's not literal, the film. It's almost like an 18th century novel where, or picaresque novel where crazy things happen and, it's Lawrence Stern or Fielding or that sort of thing, where it's heightened in a way. When you look at the film, you have to be open to playing the game. So if you say, well, he could have gone off the corner, he could have walked uptown, you're not playing the game.
Yes, and also, you're not in it, you're outside of it.
You're outside of it. Yeah. Go in it.
Yeah, if you're in it, you do feel it.
Yeah,
I think.
Exactly. The humor played better when the film played fast.
This is always true.
Yeah, but we had to,
No one ever says, it's not long enough, it'll be funnier for longer.
No, the shorter, the funnier. For me, Catherine O'Hara was a delight. I was a great fan of SCTV, and with Griffin, they were magical together. Catherine O'Hara was quite unique in her
Yeah, she still is.
She still is. She's amazing. Terry Gart was absolutely hilarious, brilliant actor. And, of course, Rosanna. Dick Miller was a wonderful character actor working out of California, Roger Corman films. They were all with the program in terms of getting it done and getting it done on schedule and on time. And being fully there for the shots, being fully there for the scenes.
You told me earlier today that at the time, you were criticized for
Yes.
the way you
Yeah.
portrayed women.
The group Women in Film had just started, and there was a presentation. They said, come and speak and show the film. It'd be good to get an audience reaction. But what happened was we screened the film, and there was a talk afterwards, and some women in the audience said, why were all the women portrayed as crazy? And why are they doing that to him? And I didn't understand. I said, why crazy? To be fair, there was another group of women got up and said, don't listen to them. You know, and they started arguing about it. I said, I didn't understand. I never thought of the women as crazy in the film because everybody down there, through Paul's eyes, he's intruding on their world. Everybody's crazy to him. Everybody. The Berlin Club, really? The bouncer at the Berlin Club going through the Kafka routine? Come on.
The bartender, everything.
The bartender is a terminal. I mean, what is this? He goes on a date, the woman dies. I mean, it's funny.
If someone sees After Hours for the first time, and they're young, and actually young, not just younger than us, you would have no frame of reference.
That's right.
For the dilemma he was in.
That's right.
Because how could you get stranded anywhere?
Right. Yeah.
Why would you need money? Why would you need, cash?
Why would you need cash?
Right. Why would you need cash? And why would you need a cab? And why can't you just call Uber? And why do you, or text Uber, whatever.
However, if you take everything that we have today, you could make an updating of this, and with the technology and all the different
because it
aspects.
breaks all the time.
It breaks.
Yes.
Something happens with the Uber car, and it just becomes a series of mishaps, and you wind up in a real anxiety dream. You're moving in slow motion. You can't get anywhere. It could happen. It could happen.
What was the movie you made right after Hours?
It was a big change in my life because After Hours came out, and somehow we wound up with Color of Money, and that, once again, was a learning experience and a workout, so to speak. Again, 50 days, maybe 55 days, I think, shooting. I think we came in a day under. We came in $1 million under. In other words, the word got around that it's okay, you could let him in the room again.